Hey guys, it's Hannah and welcome back to the Dyslexic Reader. Today I am going to be doing my mid-month wrap-up for July of 2017. Now, just before I get started, I wanted to tell my subscribers where I've been because I've been very inactive the last couple of weeks. If you have no interest in what's been going on in my life, I will leave somewhere on screen the time to skip to get into the books. Over the last 2 weeks, my grandfather has been incredibly ill and we have been sitting at his bedside waiting for him to pass away, which he did on Saturday morning at about 5 a.m. It was a very peaceful passing. He was a ripe old age of 93 and he was surrounded by his family. So there's not much more that we could ask than that. So even over the next week or so, I might be a bit inactive as regards to going to the funeral and trying to spend time with family. So my reading for this month has been hindered a bit by that, but I've also been using reading as an escape when I haven't been with my family and I've been looking some alone time. I was concentrating on reading, and so far this month I actually have read 5 books, and they're quite big books. So I'm actually really pleased if that had been a normal month, but just there's been obviously a lot of upset with my grandfather, who I was very close to, passing away. But now let's get stuck into the books. The first book I read was The Circle by Dave Eggers. I really enjoyed this book. I've only learned since reading it that they actually made it into a movie a couple of years ago, which I have yet to see. But the premise of this book really enticed me, and I didn't realise similarities between this book and the George Orwell classic 1984. So I was glad that I read 1984 last month because I felt like it made me appreciate this book a lot more, and I'm thinking of, when I get more time back to myself, actually doing a video talking about the two and comparing them and contrasting them. But I thought this was a really scary read. This book was written in 2013. It's about an internet technological company called The Circle, which is pretty much a Google or Apple type scenario, and it's about them trying to control every aspect of American culture and how they're sort of slowly taking over and infiltrating into our lives and sort of taking away our privacy. And I thought it was scary, but like really realistic. As I said, it was written a couple of years ago, I think 2013, and since that, things in this book that are conceptual have already come into force in the last sort of 4 years, which is really quite scary. I did feel around the sort of quarter to half way through mark, it started to get a little bit boring, but at the halfway point it sort of clicked with me what the book was trying to do, and the second half I felt was much more enjoyable, and I really couldn't put it down because I wanted to read it, and I ended up giving this a 5-star. I really loved it, and I can see myself coming back to it in a few years and rereading it. The second book I read was The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. This has been about a lot on BookTube and Instagram recently, I think because of the TV adaptation that's out at the minute, although I have not seen that and was interested in this before I even heard about that as well, but that's something else I can watch. This is set in a sort of dystopian society where the American government has been overthrown and it's become a very religious culture, and the handmaids are fertile women who are sort of passed from man to man to try and repopulate. Basically, I gave this book a 3 stars. I thought this book was really important. I thought it had a lot of very good views, and it was incredibly thought-provoking, but it was not a fun read by any stretch of the imagination. I found it at times hard to read. It was very uncomfortable. There is a very highly sexual theme throughout that book, so just be aware of that going in if that makes you uncomfortable. Obviously it's about a handmaid who is basically a sex slave. So if that makes you uncomfortable, I definitely wouldn't pick this up. I wouldn't say that sort of thing normally does make me uncomfortable, but I found reading this at times very uncomfortable and unnerving, but at the same time it was really thought-provoking, so that's why I ended up giving it like a 3.5 stars. It was not fun, but really good, if you understand what I mean. The third book that I read was The Doll and Other Short Stories by Daphne du Maurier. Now, Daphne du Maurier is one of my favourite authors of all time, but I'm not a big fan of short stories. I thought I would give this a go, and I gave it 3 stars. There was 2 I really liked, and a couple I thought were okay, and a couple I disliked. But it was really interesting because a lot of these stories were written when Daphne was quite young. She was about 19 or so when she wrote some of these stories, so it was interesting to see where she was coming from as an author, and her sort of promise that she showed so early on. And I love du Maurier's writing style, so obviously that was present and very true throughout all these short stories, so I liked it more than I normally would like short stories, but it still isn't my cup of tea. My fourth book is Moby Dick by Herman Melville. I am so proud of myself for reading this book. Not only is it a chunker, the text is tiny, but it also has a glossary appendix that I found myself using a lot. I normally don't in books that contain them, but I thought a lot of the terminology and language used in this book was quite confusing if you didn't use the glossary. So flicking back and forth was also a chore. If I'd have read this so far this month, I'd have been happy, but I was able to actually blitz it a couple of days before my grandfather got ill, and I really enjoyed this. I read the first page and I was completely hooked. I think part of that was probably to do with the movie Matilda, which was one of my favourite movies growing up. I was so obsessed with it that my father hid the cassette tape in the attic so that I couldn't watch it anymore, because I just watched it on repeat. And at the end of that book, after Miss Honey adopts Matilda and they get into bed and they read the opening line of this book, Call Me Ishmael, and that's how the movie ends. And for me, it really just struck a chord with me when I opened it up and read those words, and was struggling with reading my whole life and my dyslexia, to have come to the point where I could actually pick this book up and get through it was incredibly moving for me. The story wasn't the worst, but it wasn't the best. But what really got me hooked on this book was the writing style. Melville's writing is absolutely beautiful. By the end of the first page, I could not put this down. Within 2 sentences of picking this up at any point of the book, I was completely in my head, in the space. The description, which I'm not normally a fan of, I'm more a fan of dialogue and text, but the description in this text of the places and people was so beautiful. It was poetic and I loved it. I gave it a 4 star. And the 5th and final book I've read so far up until the 16th of July this year is the 3rd installment in the Heroes of Olympus series, which is the Mark of Athena. The glare of these library covers is horrible. This is the 3rd book, as I said, which would make it the 8th Percy Jackson book. I am liking these, but not as much as the original series. I give this a 4 star, like I have the rest of the Heroes of Olympus series, whereas I give all the Percy Jacksons a 5 star. I did not like some aspects of this book, but I loved other aspects, and that's what kind of kept it at the 4 star. I did not like the romance in this book. There's 7 main characters, which I found confusing to begin with, especially when each chapter is like different people's point of views. It can be hard to follow and remember who's and what storyline's going on. But also there was 4 boys and 3 girls, and 3 of the boys and 3 of the girls are paired up in couples. That is not realistic. And then the leftover guy is in some sort of wants one of the girls that's in another relationship. It's really romantic. They're all in couples, they're all in love, they all don't want to be separated. There's a lot of kissing in this book. I'm not sure I love that, but I am enjoying how the story progresses. I am enjoying the Roman aspects, and man, the end of this book I did not see coming. I can't wait to pick the next one up. It had me shook. Like, I still can't get over it. And Nico, who was not my favourite character in the Percy Jackson series, is really coming to life in this series, and I'm really starting to love him, although he wasn't in this book much, but I have a feeling like he's going to be a big part in the next one, The House of Hades, so I'm super excited. And that's all the books that I've read so far in July. As I said, for reasons I haven't been on BookTube the past couple of weeks, but I am planning in the next day or so to get my BookTube Bathon TBR up, which I'm super excited about. It'll be my first readathon that I'm really like hyped up for and want to participate in fully. So I'm so excited. And I'm hoping to get my TBR up in the next couple of days, so keep an eye out for that. I hope you're all happy. I hope you're all healthy. Thanks for watching, and I'll hopefully see you in my next video. Goodbye.